Greetings and welcome to LGR Oddware, where we're taking a look at hardware and software that is odd, forgotten, and obsolete. And today we're looking at the DeckTalk PC. And well, I'm just going to let it speak for itself.
Greetings. I am the DeckTalk PC, a card sold in the early 90s that did all sorts of awesome crap. I can say anything you command. Yes, even that. You should be ashamed of yourself already, silly human.
This thing is a delight to use. Actually, it's this card right here that does all of the talking is just a speaker. But yeah, the DeckTalk PC, I mean, obviously speech synthesis in itself is not an obsolete or outdated concept. We still have all sorts of AI assistants and things doing speech nowadays, but this goes directly into a PC of the early 90s and will make everything happen on the board itself. It's got its own CPU and RAM and everything. It's just pretty nuts. It's just fascinating to me, so let's get to it. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the DeckTalk PC here, as well as DEC in general, with that standing for Digital Equipment Corporation. They were behind a whole ton of rather serious computing equipment back in the day, including the predecessor to the DeckTalk PC, the DTC-01. Which could be connected to various computers and terminals with a serial connection, and was a device that on its own sold for $4,000 in 1984, or about $10,000 adjusted for inflation. And that thing certainly saw its share of success, considering how capable it was, but it's little wonder that the DeckTalk PC was even more appealing when it went on sale in 1992 at a cost of $1,195, or around $2,200 today. But yeah, both the DTC-01 and the DeckTalk PC rely on the same underlying speech system, which is known by many names and its various incarnations over the years, like DeckTalk, DeckVoice, MiTalk, and ClatTalk. That last one being named for the creator of the underlying technology, the late Dennis Klatt, a rather brilliant linguist and researcher in speech and hearing science at MIT, especially doing a whole lot of important work on this stuff throughout the 70s and 80s, coming up with ways to break down language into components that can be generated in a completely digital fashion through these speech synthesizers. And it really was influenced, turns out, by his own voice and cadence. I mean, I guess that should be no surprise, but I never really thought about it. So here's how he sounds compared to the DeckTalk saying the same thing.
Demonstration of several milestones in the development of systems for text-to-speech conversion.
Demonstration of several milestones in the development of systems for text-to-speech conversion.
It provided a bit of an accent and vocal quirk that was definitely picked up on by the critics of the time, and especially those in the press, often describing its accent as, quote, a cross between Indian and Swedish, or a drunken Swede, or even a Swede with a speech impediment. But nonetheless, it ended up being used by tons of automated touch-tone phone systems in particular, especially the DTC-01 with its built-in telephony stuff. It's got a phone jack and everything, so it was used by organizations like banks and emergency services, weather radio stations, educational institutions, and libraries. In particular, I just want to talk about the library one for a moment, because back in the day, there was our local library's system that would call out whenever you had an overdue book or there was something going on with your account, and it was one of these DeckTalk systems of some kind, I don't know which one, but it became like this in-joke among friends and family. It would imitate it every so often, like, hello, our records show that your book is now overdue, or whatever. It just always cracked me up, and it's kind of neat to have some of the actual technology here to mess with now. Anyway, it wasn't just used by governments and businesses and whatnot, it was also commonly used among those with difficulty seeing text on a computer screen, or even difficulty speaking at all. Folks that needed this kind of assistance could use it in conjunction with software like JAWS or Outspoken, or even as part of something like the Auth32's Text Assist, with a partnership between Creative Labs and DEC. And there were even more specialized systems like the Dynavox, where a user didn't have to worry about computer software and keyboards and stuff. There was just a specialized interface put together where a user could touch symbols to form sentences and different words of common things that they might want to do out in public, like, for example, just ordering fast food. So yeah, the DeckTalk earned quite a positive reputation in the area of increased accessibility, and the underlying tech ended up making its way into all kinds of speech synthesizers over the years, and Not every text-to-speech thing is based on the same work, but you know, there's often a common ancestry there. And you may have also heard the DEC talk in particular in certain movies from the 80s. For instance, Short Circuit, where the enemy robots, the ones that are not number 5, do the speaking, which was made to happen behind the scenes using a DEC talk.
Glass. Ice. Gin. Tonic. A squeeze of lime. Your cocktail, Dr. Mariner.
Thank you, number 2.
Or maybe you remember the robotic voices from Back to the Future 2. Those scenes from the future, like when Marty has his self-drying jacket speak to him.
Drying mode on. Jacket drying. Your jacket is now dry.
Yeah, that's a DEC talk. And any number of other robotic sounding voices you've heard over the years could very well have been based on this tech. In fact, one of the most popular things that you'll hear attributed to DEC talk is the late Stephen Hawking's iconic voice. And yeah, it kind of used DEC talk, but it's really not quite that simple. The truth of it is that he started using a speech system in 1988 from a company called Speech Plus, and that product was the Calltext 5010. And while it was based around the same MiTalk speech system that the DEC talk used, it only had a single voice and was modified and improved by Speech Plus over the course of the next 10 years and really became Hawking's own thing, which is why he continued to use it. It became his own iconic voice. However, that does bring us to the DEC talk PC from the early 90s here. And this really is a cut down version of the original DEC talk machine, except lacking any of the built-in telephone jack or anything. Like, it just has this 3.5mm mono speaker output jack right here, and that's it. That's the only I/O on this thing. You could still use it with a modem. I'm not going to be doing that because I don't even have a phone line, but you know, the possibility was there. And while it does rely on software, the software is not what's doing the speech synthesis. That's taken care of by all this processing. I mean, just take a look at some of these chips on here. You got an 8186 CPU. That's a dedicated Intel x86 compatible thing right there on the board. You also get 1 megabyte of RAM for loading in all the stuff it needs from the software itself. And there's an array of Texas Instrument chips in here, like the TMS 320 digital signal processor. You can see all of my chips here dated 1993. I'm assuming it was updated at some point because these are socketed chips. As far as I can tell, most of these exact boards were manufactured in 1991. What all this means though is it has 9 preset voices with the ability to thoroughly tweak them and even customize your own voice entirely, which again was one of the big draws of the DEC talk, creating a voice for yourself that was thoroughly your own. Okay, that's all the history and things I'm going to talk about here. Let's go ahead and get it set up with a computer and see how it works. Okay, so for the hardware side of things, I've got the lovely Woodgrain 486 here, an appropriately early 90s PC. So we'll just... this never comes off easily. For the most part, the board is controlled through software, but we do have one bit of hardware adjustment. That is this little dip switch section right here, and that by default I think is set to I/O address 340. I tried that caused a conflict last time, so we'll switch it down here, and that should be I/O address 240. Ribbon cables. There we go. Yeah, simple enough. All right, and we'll just get the speaker in here somewhere. You can use any speakers, of course, but this is a mono deal here, and yeah, it's made for it. May as well use it. Looks kind of silly there on the table. Yeah. Disc holders. That's what they're for. All right, so I've got everything installed except for, of course, the software, which is a pretty darn important bit. What have I got on here? Right, so we need to first go into the DEC talk directory, and wow, this has been a journey. I've actually had the hardware for a long time, but the software, the correct working software for this individual version of the board and everything it's taken a while. I never had original discs with this one. I just got the board alone, and then I got this separately, and like I said, it's been an ordeal, so whatever. At this point, what we can do is run this dt.bat batch file that I've customized to work with my board. It'll run a self-test, and then it's going to copy over the sound files.
DeckTalk PC version 4.2c is running.
And there we go. DeckTalk version 4.2c is running. So what can we actually do with it? Well, if we just go into the edit program, one thing we can do is have it read text files. So I can just have it say, we'll just save that as a text file. And now what we can do is, since this is loaded into RAM, it's actually a terminate stay resident program, so that will allow us to send things over to either the COM port or printer port, which is not really a printer port, but kind of. So here's what we do. We can say, we can copy over that text file to COM4, which is the DeckTalk PC.
Greetings, I'm the DeckTalk PC board and I have a voice that is a bit bizarre and yet I can't help but enjoy saying everything possible. Balls and farts and things.
So there's that. And we can do the same thing with the print command in DOS. And that'll be on LPT3.
Greetings, I'm the DeckTalk PC board and I have a voice that is a bit bizarre and yet I can't help but enjoy saying everything possible. Balls and farts and things.
There you go. So about the only other thing that I can do from this selection of software, most of this is just like TSR stuff for DOS. It does come with this DTVOC executable, which is interesting. It kind of works like a Kovac speech thing. Let me turn this down because it's really loud. It'll play these VOC files, which are like Sound Blaster compatible, essentially like waves, but I'm really not sure what kind of frequency it's looking for because that sounds really fast. In fact, if I run something here that I know what it's supposed to sound like, this right here, this is a Duke 3D, the Shake It Baby sound from the game. It's really fast. It's a conga file from the Sound Blaster Pro. It's not quite right. So anyway, one thing that you could do is run third-party software, such as JAWS here.
JAWS version 2.31 serial number 009387 registered to JAWS freeware. Ready, C:\JAWS greater.
So this is a version of JAWS, which is a very popular screen reader application for DOS and later Windows. And yeah, this is version 2.31, which they actually made freeware at some point in the past, and you can still find it online if you know where to look. And so yeah, I just installed this on here because it actually comes with support for the DeckTalk PC board, as well as a bunch of other speech devices and synthesizers and sound things, many of which I'd never heard of. But anyway, the fact that it had DeckTalk PC support built in was one reason that I wanted to use it and get it installed. It lets you do this, essentially, so...
CLS, enter, C:\JAWS greater.
It just reads everything that's on the screen, which is both very handy and a bit dangerous if you let it get out of control, such as...
Enter, volume and drive CSB, volume serial number is 4AAA-X77.
It'll just go read everything.
/JAWS, Lester greater, 03-20-199:36.
It's not going to stop.
Lester greater, 03-20-199:36.
Okay, stop. Cut it out.
J.
J
okay. D, enter.
Okay. So that's really the idea, though. JAWS will read the things on the screen so you can hear what's going on instead of having to rely on vision. In fact, if you were to run a program like WordPerfect 6.0, JAWS came with compatibility for this as well.
Space, file, open .shf, retrieve close, save as file manager .
Anyway, you get the point. It will read out absolutely everything on here.
L G R space I S space A W S O F E K I N D space O F period.
It'll do that, but it's not going to actually say read this out as a sentence. However, if you do want to control it directly, you can do that using a terminal emulator. As you saw earlier, this does actually have COM4 as its own internal serial port, as well as the printer port for LPT3, but COM4, that's the important part here. So if we were to open a program like Kermit, I've showed this before in the past when I've demonstrated various connections to BBSs and whatnot. That's really what it's made for. But It can also just do terminal emulation and then send direct, I believe, just BIOS codes or something along those lines to the DeckTalk PC itself. So if we set it to port 4 and then go over here, it's not quite set up yet, but now it is directly going to address the DeckTalk. Right, so COM port 4, 9600 baud transfer rate, and that's just default stuff. We've got it to echo the local half duplex. And then ANSI mode, I don't really need the ANSI terminal emulation. It'll work on other terminals, but this is fine. And at this point, what we can do is have it directly speak things after we type them in.
Sometimes I wonder about the future of humans and crap.
And yeah, there you go. At this point now, this lets us just directly send over ASCII text. And this has been an interesting thing to try to figure out because again, I don't have the original manual or anything, and the documentation that I found pretty much just pertains to the original DeckTalk. And that is, apparently it works a little bit different than the DeckTalk PC. So like say, whoops, I messed up there, well, that's just too bad.
Massive amounts of SRH-K3 SRHS of voice sampling.
It seriously just takes each character that you type and then automatically starts speaking after, not after you press return, but after you enter some punctuation and then press space after that. Doesn't matter what the punctuation is. Like right there, I used a comma. So you have to be pretty deliberate with what you're typing in.
I am typing deliberately and it is okay.
There you go. Now, something else that you can do on here, which is just like the original DeckTalk, is you can actually use these square brackets, colon, and then change the voice to something else. We've been using Paul. If we do NB here, that's the command, and we'll do a space, and then have Betty say something.
This is DeckTalk Betty and I have no soul.
So there's DeckTalk Betty. And now if we want to do NK, this will be the DeckTalk Kid.
My mom messed up Hades robot kid thing and I will eat your soul.
Pretty creepy. And there's a whole bunch of these other ones in here. Like, what is this? Rita, I believe, is R here.
My name is Rita Robot something or other and I want to destroy humanity for my own screwed up purposes someday.
So there's that. There's a whole bunch of voices in here. Let me go look at the manual, or the PDF. So yeah, here is a PDF of the DTC01 manual, and there are the 9 pre-built voices. You got Paul, Betty, Huge, Harry, Frank, Kid, Rita, Ursula, Val. Let's try Harry.
This is Harry and I have hairy nipples.
I love the Harry voice.
Something about this voice makes me think nothing but immature thoughts about making it say stupid junk.
So we got Frail Frank. I guess it's supposed to be like an old man.
Franks are tasty food, but my name is Frank, so I'm not sure how I feel about this anymore.
I guess that's an old man. Uppity Ursula, light female voice, okay.
I am light and female and I'm about to float away, I guess.
And variable Val, I believe that's one that you can just define.
Command error in parameter.
Whoops.
Whatever, dude, I'm just here to say things.
Yeah, I think that one doesn't actually do anything until you put in your own parameters. And so far, I haven't had a whole lot of luck in translating all of these commands from the other machine to this one. That being said, there is a fantastic emulator of the DTC01 over on archive.org. And it'll emulate the whole setup, you know, the hardware, the terminal connection. It'll put the whole thing right at your fingertips on any modern internet browser, and it's a lot of fun to play with. Just check this out.
This emulator is fantastic stuff, man. It not only lets you use all the original voices of the classic DeckTalk,
but it even lets you
control the rest of the command set. Balls, yeah.
So this means you can do things like slow down the speech rate
and makes the voices sound even sillier than usual.
And yeah, that emulator will also allow you to mess around with things like making the DeckTalk sing. That's right. If you do know the proper commands, you can make the thing sing, which DeckTalk singing, that's a whole nother realm of weirdness. I'll include some links down below the video if you want to check some of those out, but it kind of sounds like this.
Baby got the diarrhea. Spooky, scary skeletons. Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul. Seal your doom tonight, my little pony.
Well, that's about it for the Deck Talk PC, at least for this video. It's something I wouldn't mind revisiting in the future if I came up with enough reason to, or some additional interesting hardware and software to go along with it, but it's just one of those devices it's always fascinated me because I hear it so much growing up in various forms and systems, especially over the phone, and also just, I don't know, it's something that was used for so very long, and then it really wasn't until more recent years, the past couple decades, I suppose, that it was really supplanted by more convincing text-to-speech and cheaper text-to-speech options. That all kind of leads back to things like the Deck Talk, and to a degree the Deck Talk PC, which brought that kind of thing down to a slightly more affordable price tag and put it into the homes of a lot of people that really needed it back in the day. So yeah, fascinating stuff. And if you enjoyed taking a look at the Deck Talk PC alongside me, then awesome! This is exactly the kind of stuff I love covering on Oddware and LGR in general, and there are new videos every week here on the channel, so subscribe if you like, or just check out some of these other videos. And as always, thank you very much for watching.